You've got the portfolio, you've got the real estate, you've even got people telling you you're set. You can retire anytime. But deep down, you're not so sure, because when you look at your actual numbers, what you'll need to live on, how much of your nest egg is taxable, and what happens if the market drops, you start to realize something that most people don't talk about. Being rich on paper doesn't mean you're actually ready to retire. And for high net worth investors, this might be the most overlooked financial blind spot of all of them. Hi, I'm Mark Wisniewski, president of Southern Incomes. I've helped hundreds of successful people just like you bridge the gap between wealth and income, because let me tell you, I've seen it over and over again. Someone with $2 million in savings still feeling stuck, not because they didn't save enough, but because they didn't know how to use what they've saved. In this video, I'm going to walk you through why paper wealth can be deceiving, and more importantly, what to do right now if you want to turn your assets into a reliable retirement income stream. If that sounds helpful, like and subscribe so you don't miss future strategies that could save you thousands in retirement. Let's dive in. Part 1. You're not alone. Why wealthy retirees still feel uncertain. Let's start here. If you're feeling unsure about retirement, even with $1 million, $2 million, or even more saved, you're not going crazy. In fact, I meet with high net worth investors every week who say things like, Mark, I've saved, I've invested, I own my own home outright, but they still feel anxious about retirement. The truth is that anxiety comes from something deeper. It's not just about whether you're wealthy, it's about whether your wealth is structured to support you for the rest of your life. Think of it this way. If I told you that your portfolio is worth $2 million, but you don't know how much of that you can actually spend, what your monthly income will look like after taxes, or whether it will last through 30 years of retirement, then that $2 million becomes more of a question mark than a comfort. And here's where it gets real. Many retirees have been conditioned to think net worth equals security. But retirement security doesn't come from your net worth. It comes from how your money flows. It comes from knowing that next month's bills are going to be covered without stress, without guesswork. That's why so many successful people feel stuck. They have wealth, but not a plan to use that wealth in retirement. Part 2, assets do not equal income. The retirement conversion problem. Let's walk through a typical example. Say you're 62, married, and between you and your spouse, you've saved up $1.5 million in a 401k and some IRAs, $300,000 in some other taxable brokerage accounts, and maybe you have $500,000 in home equity with $100,000 in other savings. And finally, you have Social Security that maybe will pay you $3,500 a month combined if you start at the full retirement age. Now, on paper, that looks great. But let me ask you, how much of that can you actually spend each year without running out? What's the tax consequences of pulling money out from those retirement accounts? Are you withdrawing in a way to minimize taxes or just maximizing your short-term convenience? And is your investment strategy still built for growth or for predictable income? This is what I call the retirement conversion problem. So you've done the work to accumulate assets, but now you need to convert those assets into spendable, sustainable, and of course, tax-smart income. And that's not a one-size-fits-all answer, because how you withdraw money from your 401k is very different from how you withdraw from a Roth IRA or a brokerage account. And if you get that order wrong, you could easily create massive tax bills, trigger higher Medicare premiums, or worse yet, drain your portfolio much faster than you realize. A lot of people come to me saying, Mark, I just want to know if I'm doing this right. And often they're making decisions based on what worked during accumulation, not realizing that retirement is a completely different game. Think of it like this. Accumulation is like building the mountain, where retirement is about climbing back down safely, steadily, and of course, without falling. And that takes planning, not just investment planning, but income planning, tax planning, and longevity planning. It's about coordinating everything to make your money work for you now that the paycheck paychecks have stopped. Part 3, the 3 big leaks. What drains your paper wealth in retirement? Now, you've probably heard the phrase, it's not about what you earn, it's about what you keep. In retirement, it's even more true. It's not what you've saved, it's how efficiently you can use that. So let's look at 3 major leaks that quietly drain your paper wealth, especially if you don't have a strategy in place. Leak number 1, sequence of return risk. Most retirees don't just face market risk, they face timing risk. Let's say you retire in a year when the market drops 20%, very common. You still need the withdrawal income to live on, but you're selling when those investments are way down, locking in those losses that you cannot recover from. Even a well-diversified portfolio can shrink really fast if you're pulling money out during a downturn. This is called sequence of return risk, and it's one of the biggest threats to wealthy retirees who don't have a withdrawal buffer or income guardrails already in place. One bad year early on can have a bigger impact than several bad years later on. That's why I help clients create a plan that includes short-term income buckets, so you're not selling those stocks right in the middle of a crash. Longer-term growth buckets to keep up with that inflation. Without this structure, even a $2 million portfolio can turn to $1.3 million like that in less than a year, especially if your withdrawals are poorly timed. Leak number 2, taxes on tax-deferred accounts. So your 401k and IRAs are not 100% yours. Uncle Sam has a claim on every single dollar you withdraw. So when you start pulling out that $80K a year for retirement expenses, that's taxable income. And if you add in Social Security, dividends, and other income on top of that, you might be pushed into a higher tax bracket without even realizing it. So that could mean higher federal income taxes, IRMAA penalties that are going to increase your Medicare premiums, and listen to this, up to 85% of your Social Security being taxed. That's why I always say smart retirement planning is tax planning. And most rich on paper retirees don't realize how fast taxes can erode their income unless they plan withdrawals carefully. Leak number 3, real estate equity that doesn't pay you. If your home is worth $800,000 or $1 million, but it's just sitting there, guess what? That's not a source of income. I'm going to call that dead equity. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and sell your house or go on take more debt, but what I am saying is you should know what role your real estate plays in your retirement plan, because if your plan hinges on your portfolio and your home, but you don't have a strategy to tap that equity via downsizing, rental income, or other tools, you could find yourself house rich but cash poor. And that's a very tough spot to be in when those unexpected expenses hit, like long-term care or helping a family member in need. Each of these leaks, market timing, taxes, idle equity, can quietly drain your retirement security. And the bigger your net worth, the more exposed you might be. The solution is not to panic, it is to plan. And then the next section, I'll show you the shift that makes all the difference. Part 4, the shift from accumulation to distribution. Most people spend 30 or 40 years in accumulation mode. You know the drill. Max out your 401k, invest in your brokerage accounts, pay off that mortgage, build equity, build assets, build net worth. But then you hit 60 or 62 or maybe 65, and suddenly you're not growing the mountain anymore. You're starting to live off of it. And that is where the shift has to happen, because retirement is not about growth anymore. It's about predictable income, minimizing taxes, and managing risks like inflation, healthcare, and longevity. Here's what I want you to remember. The strategies that got you to retirement are not the same ones to get you through retirement. Let's break that down. Accumulation focuses on total return, growth-focused investing, deferring taxes as long as possible, taking on more risk because you have time to recover. Distribution focuses on reliable income, strategic withdrawal sequencing, reducing lifetime taxes, not just this year's, protecting against volatility when you can't afford a big loss. Here's an example I see all the time. A client comes in with $2 million saved, most of it in tax-deferred accounts. Now, their advisors have been great at growing that portfolio, but now they're 63 and ready to slow down. And they realize they have no plan for when to take Social Security, no idea on how to draw down their 401k efficiently, and no insight into what happens tax-wise when those required minimum distributions kick in at age 73. They've built the machine, but no one showed them how to turn it on without overheating it. That's why in retirement, you don't just need an investment advisor, you need a retirement income strategist. Someone who helps you build a withdrawal plan that protects against market timing. Coordinate your tax buckets, traditional, Roth, non-registered. Reduce sequence risk with cash reserves or other conservative income assets. And adjust the plan as your life changes, because it will. This is the shift most people miss. And it's the reason many retirees feel like they're guessing instead of planning. You don't want to find yourself turning 80 stuck in a high tax bracket, so take action today to avoid that dilemma. Part 5, what you should ask yourself and your advisor. If you're sitting there wondering whether you really are ready to retire, ask yourself, how much guaranteed income do I have? Social Security, pension, annuities? How much flexible income will I need each month? Do I know the tax impact of withdrawals? Have I stress tested my plan for 30 years of retirement? How about if the market drops 20% in year 1, how's that going to change my plan? If you don't have clear answers to these, that doesn't mean that you can't retire. It just means you need a better strategy. So yes, you may be rich on paper, but paper wealth doesn't retire well without a plan behind it. If you want help building a personalized retirement income plan, one that turns your savings into a steady, tax-efficient paycheck, book a call with me using the link in the description. We'll help you retire not just with confidence, but with clarity.